What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Evan. In today's video, I'm breaking down the trade that I took on IWM to make 53 freaking percent on the day. And it would have been 100%, right? And I'll explain to you guys exactly my thought process. Yes, I did get out too early, but it went and hit my targets absolutely perfectly. And it started reversing. Right now, there's a continuation on it. But overall, we're just going to break down the trade, exactly what I was thinking, my thought process, the reason for my entry, my exact entry, and take profits and all that other stuff. So with that being said, going into the day, I was looking at IWM. And I hope that this helps you guys with your trading overall. This was my bias for the day. Or I didn't necessarily have a bias for the day, but I just waited for price action to play out and then waited to see where it was like starting to head. So on the day, I started on the 1 hour. I didn't like anything on the 1 hour. I didn't like anything on the 30-minute time frame. I went to the 15-minute time frame, and I started to look for highs and lows, and I started to look for fair value gaps. So highs and lows on the 15-minute time frame. We have this 15-minute high at 224.69, and we had this other 15-minute high from Christmas Eve, which was 224. So nice whole number right there. I liked that one the most. And obviously, as you can see, we hit that target perfectly, but I sold too early. But before going that deep into the trade, my entry on this trade was me simply just waiting in the morning, waiting and looking for confluences within the market. So I marked out this low here, I marked out this low, and I thought maybe we could take either this low or this low and continue up. But I honestly wasn't too sure about that, just because we've already taken this low and now we're kind of in a range bound area. So I didn't really like this low or this low. This one was too far down, and this one was obviously too far down as well. So what I did was I zoomed in on the 15-minute, looked for any other confluences, and I found this 15-minute fair value gap right here. So on the 15-minute, we have this fair value gap right here. We technically have one right here as well. I just marked out the lower of the two, but I did watch the top one as well, but we ended up just running through the top one, so I just deleted that and watched the bottom one. So we came into this fair value gap right here on the 15-minute time frame, and then I'll zoom down to the bro. Right, jeez. Zoom down to the 2-minute time frame, which is mainly what I take my entries off of. So we had targets up here. We had 224. We had 224.69, and we had this little high right here. Whatever, we didn't hit it up in the day, but it's just like a little 5-minute high at 222.95. So if we zoom in here on the 2-minute time frame, you can see price came down into this 15-minute fair value gap, right? Break of structure to the upside, but there's no entry. There was no entry on literally any of this. The entry would have been if price came back down to around this area, right? There was no entry on it. We continued to push up. We hit the 2-minute, 200-day moving average, which is typically a strong resistance. Got rejected immediately. Before we hit this, right, I noticed that we had a 2-minute fair value gap. Now, I'll draw this out for you guys just to explain exactly what I saw, because there's two 2-minute fair value gaps within here. If we just zoom in full blast so we can see, there's two 2-minute fair value gaps. There's one right here, right, and then there's one right, if I can draw this out, and there's one like right there. So I just said, screw it. I'm just going to make this one whole fair value gap. And that's exactly what I did. Now, we ended up obviously coming back down to the lower one, but I just made the whole zone a fair value gap because they were literally right next to each other. So basically what I did was I took this basically from here up to, what was it? Here? Yes, I believe so. No, technically up to here. Oh my God, bro. Can I draw anything at all? Can I draw anything? Jesus. All right, so up to basically this wick right here. And I just drew this entire fair value gap on the 2-minute all the way over. Now, price ripped up so fast out of this that I was waiting for a retracement to it. I knew there was going to be a retracement to it. I just know, right? You have to have some sort of like intuition with this, because obviously if price is going to push up, right, and reject and go back to this, like obviously it's going to come back to this fair value gap. Why? Because there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green candles in a row. There's no way that there's not going to be a pullback. And if there's not a pullback, if it didn't come back here, then I'm not taking an entry. Then there's no entry. So actually, now that I'm looking at this, there's two confluences on this. We had this combination of these two fair value gaps, which is this zone here. And then price also came back to our original order block, which is technically, if we go over to here, it would have been the top of this candle. Price literally came back to this order block perfectly, and you could have had the entry off of here as well. So technically it's two confluences. I was not even watching the original order block. I was simply watching the fair value gap. But price pushed up, rejected off the 200-day moving average, pulled back into this fair value gap perfectly. Once I started to see this green candle form, I simply entered here, set the stops at the bottom of the fair value gap, which was technically, I was kind of looking for the low of this candle. If we were going to break below that, I was simply just going to watch to see if we were going to get a push down, and then I would just sell out. But in this case, we ended up perfectly bouncing straight up off of that and then going straight up to my targets. So my first target was this 222.95, which is a lower target, obviously, as you can see. I ended up just selling one right here, but the majority of the position I sold right here. My best sell was at 53%. So we pulled back, bounced right out of that. We had a little bit of chop here. The contracts weren't moving as good as I thought they were going to be, but overall, still banked green on the trade. And then we ended up hitting the 224 target. So one thing that I've been needing to practice on more often is just holding at least one or two runners to prove to myself that price is going to hit this target, because I have it marked out. I know that it's an area of liquidity, and I know that price wants to draw there. So just gaining that confidence and understanding that price is ultimately going to go to that target. But overall, still a solid trade. We took out, basically came into a fair value gap on the 15-minute time frame, pushed up, made a retracement into a 2-minute fair value gap and a 2-minute order block, and then straight up out of that hit our upside targets perfectly to a T. So absolutely just beautiful trade, textbook. Yeah, other than that, hopefully this applies to your guys' trading. Hopefully you guys can learn from this video and apply it to your trading and take more similar trades like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video.